What is a fun and interesting way to use the Ettin in a Dungeons and Dragons or roleplay game? Like, the Ettin is the thing with two heads, basically a giant. I've always considered them the potential for causing all sorts of trouble myself. So go crazy with this. Opal, what have you got for the Ettin?
I feel like all of my ideas are very specific, and you guys explore more of the ecology of the monster. Do we want someone to go first who has more explanation of what the Etin is?
Sure, we can do that. Kevin, would you like to do this for us?
I don't know if I'm going to go into the ecology of the Ettin. I guess for me, the thing about Ettin is you got the two heads, right? The two heads that are perpetually arguing with one another, and you have this irritability. They're just always at each other's throats, as it were. And then, of course, they're ill-tempered and they have a low intelligence. And one of the things I thought about is, what if you had, and I talked about this when I did a video on Cyclopses, and why do Cyclopses all have to be stupid? What if you had an Ettin that was born and it was intelligent and it was able to say, and it cowed like you could have one head be intelligent and one stupid, and it sort of cows the other head into submission. And then it starts to think about what are we doing here? What are our objectives? And let's say they always say there's a female that have both heads, and then the male have both heads. And they go into their mating ritual in the stat block. I noticed how the female subdues the male, has the kid, he takes care of the kid, or takes care of her until she has a baby, then sends him off. So would this super smart female Ettin be like, I've got to find a super smart male Ettin. I want to, because I have this intelligence, and I realize I don't want to waste my time on these loser Ettins. And this becomes something where the players might get involved. They meet this Ettin, and this she is like, tries to negotiate with him. And of course, you're like, this is the smartest Ettin. What happened to the totally stupid or whatever? And maybe this smart legendary Ettin, or she's figured out where he is. She needs help to subdue him from the players, to outwit him because he's smart. And then the other thing is, a smart Ettin, would it try to go to none of them get along. When the Ettins come together, they just fight. They have nothing, they can never cooperate. And here's this smart Ettin who says, wait a minute, why are we doing this? Why are we fighting? Look at the other races in the world. They cooperate, they get along. And the other Ettins, as irascible and whatever, they might look at this super intelligent Ettin as some sort of godlike figure, or something, that the charisma of this. And so what you're doing is you're saying, okay, why does it have to be stupid? Why can't it be a little more formidable and something more interesting than just the brutish thug that, you just sort of wipe out?
I like the idea. I was not expecting that, Kevin, so I don't know what to say to that.
It's not really the ecology of it. That's what I had. So.
Hey man, that's cool. That's fine. We've got plenty of people who know how to do the ecology and stuff. AJ, yes, you go for it, mate.
Okay, so Ettins are really interesting because their ecology's changed quite a lot. Like, at one point, they were mutant orcs that were kind of cursed into becoming Ettins. But that the origin and etymology of the word, if you could, pardon pun, is actually man-eating giants. So the qualifications I've got it for it being an Ettin, or the people calling it an Ettin, is it's a big giant, it's got two heads, and it eats people. It's chaotic evil. Other giants don't really eat people. Hill giants occasionally will chow down on a humanoid, but for the most part, anything above that is not really supposed to be eating people. They may threaten to eat people, but it's a bit not the thing to do in giant society. Ettins, on the other hand, no, they'll eat you, and they'll enjoy every second of it. So if you want a grisly example of that, the classic tale of Grendel what was the recent adaptation they did of that? The classic Viking tale was kind of done in an actor anime style.
Beowulf.
Yeah, Beowulf. That's it. Yeah, it's Beowulf. So Beowulf is a classic sort of Ettin creature. It's pissed off because people are making too much noise. It's got a mutant ear that picks up too much noise, and so it comes in and it just terrorizes them. But it's really just a child having a tantrum. But it also eats people at the same time. So it's a terrifying child. Yeah, and ettins, they've got that awareness because they can see through both heads at the same time, and so it's really hard to sneak up on them. And you got to wait until they start arguing, and the trick is to fool them into starting argument with themselves, and then classic example of a two-headed, two different personalities. Super bad guy is, of course, Demogorgon. Is kind of like an Ettin too. So I don't know. Maybe he's got a finger in that pie of all two-headed, intelligent, nasty things that eat people. Sort of feeds back to Demogorgon a little bit. And I like Demogorgon because he's like the classic Marvel Hulk. The madder he gets, the stronger he gets. The more you fight him, the more lethal he becomes. So the best thing you can do is just don't fight him at all and run. I like an Ettin that gets more and more powerful. Classic Slain comic is channeling earth power, so the more the Ettin is incited by battle, the stronger and more warped it becomes. So it's channeling primal power, which we're going to start seeing a lot more in the new edition of the game. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that. Primal power in 4th edition was really cool. So yeah, I don't know, have some sort of creature which is inherently unstable and cursed, and when things go awry, its intelligence just goes completely haywire, and it turns into a ravening monster that just wants to eat everybody. And you get those legendary Celtic battles where a warrior is killing 400 people in one day, sort of thing.
So make sure to, if you're an adventurer, bring tomato sauce with you when you're facing an Ettin. That's because it's going to need some sort of sauce for you to go down with. Femin, have
tons of chili powder on yourself, so you're not tasting very good.
Yeah. Femin, have you got something for the Ettin?
Yeah, I've always struggled to use ettins. I've always found it very difficult to give them sort of like something that they do that, say, other giantkin or giants all don't already do. Same thing with Cyclops. I've always had an issue kind of finding what they're supposed to do. And so what I always resort to whenever I play these guys, I always go for the comedy. Like the heads arguing with each other. Like it's like the easiest thing you can do to like really give them easily something that like differentiates it. Because that's, I guess, the one thing that they're like very obviously different from anyone else. But it's I don't remember where I read this in the lore. Probably might have been one of the dungeon magazines, but apparently they're not supposed to argue with each other, and it's kind of ruined everything. Like everything that I used to use these guys for. Apparently, I guess like one of the heads is always dominant, and that's just kind of the way it is. And I never liked that. I like it that they're like there's a struggle, something kind of like Demogorgon, whereas you have like the two heads just kind of like each kind of wanting something different. In that case, I guess you have something of because Demogorgon, one head is smart, the other one is a little bit like more rageful. So plays with like what Kevin was saying, right? Like kind of adding that intelligence to the Ettin. I need to start doing that to like just revitalize the Ettins for me because I'm struggling, man. I'm here so that you guys can help me actually. I need ideas for my own games here.
With the Cyclops, they were traditionally the servants of the Fomorians, and in 4th edition, they explored that a lot as well. I'm mentioning a lot of 4th edition at the moment. It's probably enraging a lot of people. Who cares? It's got a lot of cool lore in it, and a lot of that's coming back to the fore.
So I actually have an idea to build off that, Femin. But I'm going to save that for a little bit later on because I was going kind of in that direction myself a little bit. But I have some more specific stuff for that. Glenn, what have you got for the Ettin?
Okay, so the magazine Rhexx was talking about was Dragon Magazine 93, Elminster's Ecology of the Ettin. And yes, the right head is dominant. I did a deep lore dive to research this. The right head is dominant. It's not technically smarter, but it is the dominant one. And they don't argue with themselves, at least according to Elminster. But what I found fascinating was that you can decapitate one head and the Ettin will continue to live. It will rapidly go insane, but it will. You're not going to kill it if you just take off one head. And it gave me the idea of if you vorpal you go snicker snack on an Ettin and you take off one of the heads. And then it starts looking for things to replace its missing head with, like the head of a statue, or something else. So you've got this this town that has like a big statue, and the head keeps disappearing because the Ettin will trundle in the middle of the night, snap off the head, and put it on the stump until it falls off or something happens. So I mean, the problem with the Ettin, it hasn't been the best written monster. It's two-headed, it's hungry. Now it argues amongst itself. It can't be surprised because one head's always looking around, which I'm not really sure how that works from behind. But yeah, they wrote it into the corner way too many times. So you're going to have to go off script to make the Ettin interesting or challenging, or else it's just hit points with it's a beat stick with more hit points than most.
I guess the problem with the Ettin is there may not be enough lore or legend behind it for people to draw from, and it's been dependent on the designers of Wizards of the Coast and TSR to try to figure out this stuff, and they just haven't been able to figure it out, how to make it sort of stand out, whereas they can chuck things together and they've managed to create other monsters. An existing monster essentially is never really gone anywhere. Did you have something that you would like to add to the mix here, Opal? Because everybody's pretty much gone apart from me.
No, that's perfect. The two things that stuck out to me with ettins are, one, their awful intelligence. I think it's like a 4 or something like that. Definitely a negative modifier. And then 2 is the fact that if given the choice, they would never bathe. They're caked in just this thick grime, dirt, soil, whatever. And I think when you combine those two things, my mind goes to, well, one, they've got a ringleader, someone who is charging in with an army of ettins, someone who can command them because they're too dumb to strategize. So someone has to kind of, lead them. But then secondly, I picture that smart, strategic whoever placing them on a battlefield where we know that there's an army coming in. And on this battlefield, it just looks like a bunch of stones and rocks, part of the landscape. And, the party walks into this trap where all of these landscape rocks start opening up, and it's all, like an army of ettins attacking. I think that to successfully run ettins, I don't know, they might just have to have some sort of ringleader.
That's a ringleader that won't live very long, because unless it's another Ettin, it's probably going to get eaten by accident in the middle of that battle. I'm looking forward to that. I believe that there is a movie they put out called Jack the Giant Slayer, and there was an Ettin in there along with the other giants, and one of the heads was more dominant than the other. You kind of got the impression that one of the heads was smaller and he's a bit more of a dope, and the other one was smarter and a bit more cunning, in fact way too cunning, far more cunning than the other giants, maybe except one. So I think that's a sort of a really good example of the Ettin and how you could portray it as one that's super cunning and the other one just follows along because they're just too dumb to be able to sort of find their own way or be particularly individual or take control. At times like these, when I am stuck, because I was also stuck with the Ettin and what to do, I drew on my childhood and I returned myself to the time when I was watching The Muppet Show. And I felt like The Muppet Show was the solution for me, which is where I was going with this, Mr. Rhexx, because for me, I have always gone with the comical element for the Ettin, primarily because I want them to argue with themselves, or at least argue with somebody. So you remember in The Muppet Show, there's those two individuals that do the heckling in the crowd? I feel like the Ettin is the perfect heckler in a crowd. Of course, it'll be a crowd of giants, because if any other crowd, they're all going to get eaten. But if you're dealing with a giant society, that's the heckler in the group who gives, that razzes whoever's doing the public speaking. And then there was another one, and I was like, well, you can go the next step. And I felt like, if you've ever been to live comedy stand-up, and you have one person who does the live comedy stand-up, that's good. But if you have like two and they're playing off each other, it's actually far more entertaining. And I can see an Ettin making an excellent nightclub act where they are the comedian who tells the jokes and responding to each other. Just my 2 cents. That's how I'd probably use the Ettin in my game.
I'm still laughing so much about like the Ettin going crazy and grabbing like statue heads and just planting them on the broken head. Like I love that so much. The idea of like an Ettin going so crazy because it's supposed to have this other brain, I guess, kind of just telling it what to do or what to think or just going back and forth with it. Instead, it's just listening to some voice from some dark creature or something or some spirit, and it's just listening to it because it has to. It's almost like in its biology. It's like meant to go back and forth with something, and it's just using things and pretending like it is that thing which is talking to, and just going and almost comedically. I don't know. I always go for the comedy with this, but that would be like a really cool bad guy.
Imagine if they've got the Ettin head and then the ghost of its other head is still there.
That's amazing.
Giant ventriloquist dummy.
Yeah, Statler and Waldorf were the hecklers in the Muppets. Going back to my childhood, back before he was Doctor Who, John Pertwee played Wurzel Gummidge, who was a scarecrow that had different turnip heads of different types of personalities that he would screw onto his body. So if he needed to be a professor or a gardener or something like that, he'd rummage around and he'd take out this head that was the right one. Some sort of a troll Ettin that's got different troll heads that it can screw onto itself would be hilarious, and it would really, really subvert the players' expectations where they chopped the head off and they just replaced it with another one. Trolls, man. Gotta burn it with fire.
I think you need to pair an Ettin. I think you need to pair an Ettin with a pet Hydra, so it's got this unlimited supply of heads. When one decays, you cut one off and put it on.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Also, I think the giants, was it the frost giants that could graft different bits to their body? So extra
a very specific kind of frost giant, yeah.
Yeah. So you could have an Ettin version of a frost giant as well.
Yeah. And Gygax took the idea from the Ettin from a single line from Lord of the Rings. Or maybe The Hobbit, but like Gandalf mentioned that occasionally trolls have two heads, and that's it. That's all the lore that we got from the Ettin was that one line. You never actually saw them; they were just mentioned in passing.
All right. Well, if anybody has anything else they want to add to the Ettin, we're going to move on to the next monster because I think we've done the Ettin. Tricky monster. I mean, honestly, I think it is actually a tricky monster to include into your game. And we would like to know what ideas you've come up for your game. Leave them in the comments section, share them with us, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.